leadership training program and everything at Target. So what did it look like? Just at a high level.
Target's regional distribution centers at the time were all set up in a prototype format. So every regional distribution center that you would go to anywhere in the company, they all looked exactly the same. And that allowed them to be able to have standardized SOPs that could be used through their entire DC network.
How leadership, operations and everything, they kind of work in a synergy, right? So I want to know your thoughts on that.
One thing that I have seen happen rather frequently in a lot of companies is there's, to your point, there's a lot of effort put into maybe bringing in Lean or Six Sigma projects or new software and technology. But then when it comes to actually executing it and setting up the people for success who will actually be executing this new process every day, who will hold their teams accountable to that every day, there's kind of this disconnect.
Welcome everyone to Execution at Scale. As you know, I'm Vikrant, also known as Vic or Robbie to some of you, founder of Leanify and Curator. This series exists because the best conversation in this industry happens in hallways and over coffee and not really on stage. So I feel like keeping that transparency, honesty, and impromptness is the best way. And me and Tanya have had multiple of those conversations. So joining me today is Tania, founder of Prepared Leader. Tania is an industrial engineer who has spent her career at the intersection of operations, leadership across the supply chain, warehousing, and distribution industry, helping operators build the kind of leadership that actually holds up under pressure, right? So we are executing at scale and executing under pressure always. So Tania, welcome to Execution at Scale. I'm very excited about this session given we're both industrial engineers. So before we deep dive into it, anything else you would like to add on? If I missed anything about you or in general?
No, I appreciate the introduction. Thanks so much for having me. And I agree. Very excited about this conversation as we have a lot of passions around this industry in common.
Well, awesome. So Tanya, tell me, let's start by knowing a little bit about your journey. I always like to do that. Some of our speakers may know about it, some of them don't. So I would love to know that how you ended up founding Prepared Leaders and your journey.
Yeah. So, like you said, my degree's in industrial engineering, and I started straight out of college working for Target at one of their 1.2 million square foot regional distribution centers, leading a team of warehouse workers. So, it was the first time I'd ever worked in a warehouse, and definitely the first time I'd ever led a team. I'm very, very thankful that I started my career at Target because they had a really amazing frontline leadership development program. On my very first day, this was way back in the early 2000s. So I got a binder that was about this thick with all the SOPs that I needed to learn. I was paired up with a certified trainer who had received training on how to train other leaders well. And it was just really fantastic in regards to setting me up for success in a brand new role in an industry that I hadn't worked in before because I just started my career. And so spent 8 years at Target, both in operations, spent a little time in HR, then went to Coca-Cola and did more leadership in supply chain and also some project management. Then after those two positions, I was able to take some operations roles in small and medium-sized businesses here in the Phoenix area where I live. So it was really great for me to be able to get perspective on how a big corporate entity runs, but then also get experience on how smaller companies run as well. And in that time frame, I had found out about folks that do consulting, and it just sounded so fun to me. I love solving problems and digging into challenges to do everything that I can to find solutions. And so the idea of being able to do that on a regular basis, as well as train leaders, I just sounded like a dream job to me. And so I decided to found this company, which started in March of 2024. So we just hit our 2-year milestone, which is so exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been such a wonderful journey, and I've been able to work with just the greatest clients and leaders that just melt my heart for how much they love their people and they love their operations. And so, being able to support them and help them feel more equipped and confident with leadership tools that they can use right away to lead their teams at a very high level is just a really fulfilling thing for me and gives me a lot of meaning in the work that I do. So I feel really grateful and blessed.
That's wonderful. And I'm sure that is an exciting journey coming in from working with Target, where things were maybe like a little bit more organized, like you are
Yes.
trained way before you start working, and then seeing some of the SMB operations and seeing that, oh, everyone is running around. Why?
Yes. Yes.
I'm a little bit curious to talk briefly about you mentioned about the leadership training program and everything at Target. So what did it look like? Just at a high level. I know that we can probably talk about it for hours, but
Yeah. Yeah. So, how it worked is Target's regional distribution centers at the time were all set up in a prototype format. So, every regional distribution center that you would go to anywhere in the company, they all looked exactly the same. And that allowed them to be able to have standardized SOPs that could be used through their entire DC network. It was really amazing for them to be able to roll out changes very quickly because everyone was working the same way, following the same processes. So essentially, I learned all of these SOPs in partnership with my executive trainer, and they were all the SOPs were documented online, so we would read through them. Then in our workbooks, in our binders, we would answer questions to ensure that we grasped the knowledge. Then I would go out on the floor with that trainer, and then we would actually use the information that I just learned. So it was really great at kind of this process of read the information you need to know, kind of understand it and reinforce it through filling out these workbooks, then really apply it on the floor immediately with this trainer. So it was really a great experience to be able to have that solid foundation. And to your point, because this was my first job out of college, I just kind of assumed, oh, cool, this is, how training and onboarding works. But then as I went farther down in my career and met other people in other companies, I realized that my experience was very much the exception rather than the norm. And so that's really what I look to try to change is to help leaders be able to have the tools that they need to lead their teams well. Because what I found is a lot of companies promote from within, which I love. And I'm definitely a huge proponent of growing your talent within the organization. But too often, we kind of assume that if someone is a really great order picker, then they'll also be really great at leading order pickers when the skill set is completely different. And so, really helping companies understand that there are specific leadership skills that are necessary, just like any job. You need to learn the technical aspects of any job that you have. Leadership is no exception. You need to be able to equip these individuals with the tools that they need to drive great accountability, to set expectations, to have conversations, to reinforce those expectations, to drive really positive business results. All of those are tools that need to be learned in order for them to be highly successful in their roles.
yeah, and what you just said, it's the mark, right? Like an order picker, if they're good at picking orders, thinking that they would be managed like good at like leading pickers. And it also reminded me that I forgot to mention the title of the series or like the episode before when we started. So which it kind of defines it too, why leadership is the hidden process problem, right? So that could also be process. So when I started in operations too, as you know that I'm industrial engineer as well, so everything was like okay, it's like more operations driven, process driven. But over the career I also realized that other things except line balancing, time studies, Six Sigma is also like everything in a business or even around us is like a process. So kind of even promoting someone is kind of a process, and maybe sometimes you cannot have a step by step process of like okay, this is how I would promote, but having some sort of general framework, right? So like,
Mhm.
what are your kind of thoughts on that? I guess like what I'm trying to get at is that how like leadership, operations, and everything, like they kind of like work in a synergy, right? Like, so I want to know
Absolutely.
your thoughts on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, one thing that I have seen happen rather frequently in a lot of companies is there's, like, to your point, there's a lot of effort put into maybe bringing in Lean or Six Sigma projects or new software and technology and creating and spending all this money and all these time and resources on optimizing the operation, and all these great projects are done. But then when it comes to actually executing it and setting up the people for success who will actually be executing this new process every day, who will hold their teams accountable to that every day, there's kind of this disconnect where my favorite analogy, I like analogies and stories, is
Tell
if
me.
you think about it as a relay race. If you're running in a relay race, when you hand the next person the baton, you don't want to toss it at them. You don't want to throw it at them. You want to make sure that their hand has a full, strong grasp on that baton, and then you let go. And that's where I think there's kind of a miss sometimes, is that these new process project software is rolled out in one meeting or one training, and then it's just expected that everybody fully understands exactly how to do it and how it impacts their day-to-day work and how they should reinforce this with the people on the floor. And it just doesn't work that way. There needs to be constant follow-up, constant communication, constant support for these leaders, because essentially for them, a lot of times, the company may feel that these initiatives are really great and transformational, but when you're a leader and you're already feeling like you have 50 things on your plate and you get one more thing, it doesn't feel like a good thing. It should, but it feels like, great, now one more thing that I have to pay attention to, or one more thing I have to manage, instead of really seeing how it can benefit them and the business and their work. So really making sure that when we develop these SOPs, when we use great tools like Lean and Six Sigma, that we're not just piling it on these frontline leaders as one more thing they have to do or manage, but really helping them understand, everybody wants to know, what's in it for me? We're all kind of selfish at the end of the day, right? What's in it for me? Help them understand what's in it for you, to help you feel more confident when you lead, for you to be able to drive stronger business results, for you to create a stronger team culture and morale and engagement. How does this tool help you do all of these things so that we actually make your job better, easier, faster, more fun, all of those things? So I think that's where we can do more work in that area, to have that synergy between like projects and project management and operations and leadership and the folks that are directly on the floor doing the work.
I totally agree with that. And like, I mean, as we always talk about, like most of the things you and I always chat, like because I've had a similar journey. So, right, like, what I'm intrigued is that, and like, so when we think about like overall, like you said, like, one more thing for a frontline leader or a like founder, like, to have to do, right? Like, so since you just said that like it was a 2 year anniversary for you, right? Like what
Yeah.
are like how are you like kind of juggling that? Like I guess like sometimes making framework for your own self becomes a little bit more difficult than making a framework for someone else,
So
which I
true.
realized like while working on building the both companies. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because I am 100% feeling that right now. So I think it's funny that, the whole analogy of the cobbler's kids don't have shoes. It's very much how I feel it in my business. I actually went to a conference back in February, and a woman gave a keynote talk, and um, she's actually the CEO of a cleaning company in Australia, and it's a seven-figure cleaning business, super successful in Australia. And I went up to her after and I said, thank you so much for your message. A lot of what you said really resonated for me. I think where I am at in my business right now is I really need a me for me. And what I do for clients, I need someone to help do for me. And so I actually started working with her, she's now my business coach, to help me talk through some things that I could use, another fresh pair of eyes, a great experienced mind who has been there, done that. And um, just working with her has been such a bright light and such an encouragement to me. So I think that's the thing we all have to remember is that we don't have to be on these journeys on our own.
Lord,
There
yes.
are so many people who, we can learn from, who, there's so many different networks that we can find. I'm very grateful to be part of a couple of different associations locally where I've met amazing people that I can bounce some ideas off, both from an operational entrepreneurship standpoint. Also, I do some professional speaking. So I've got a network of professional speakers that I learn from. So it's just really important to know that we don't need to feel like it has to be something we do on our own. And it is important to build a community and support each other because we're all in our own journey in different ways. And I think sometimes it's easy to look at people's LinkedIn profiles and think, oh my goodness, they're so successful. They're doing all these things, but there's a lot happening behind the scenes that we don't know about. And so, our own journey is our journey. And so the pace at which we have to learn and grow is all, up to us to make those decisions. And so that's something I'm actively working on now is how to find resources and great people that I can work with to do the areas of the business that I'm not great at. I'm an ops girl. I love operations. And so now I'm looking for people who can help me with kind of the sales and marketing side of things, the creative
Finance.
piece. Yeah, all the things that I like doing those things are kind of fun, but is that the best use of my skill set?
No.
No. So, how do I make sure that I'm maximizing my strengths
Yeah.
to make the most impact in my business and in the businesses of my clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I that's what I found out too, right? Sometimes coach needs coaches too, right? And
Absolutely.
because as much as we know, that perspective of having the fresh set of eyes, and also because what I realized, between the time of me just consulting and building my companies and businesses, it's like sometimes you get so much involved in
Mhm.
your day-to-day stuff, we lose our little bit of our creative thinking,
Yep.
one. And also sometimes it is about just a fresh set of eyes. I think that's the right way to
Mhm.
put it too. And I mean, when someone asks me, okay, why do you need coach or mentorship or a consultant? I mean, that's what I say. It's not like you don't know what to do. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But sometimes okay, this is what I should do. But really, being able to do it, it's like hiring a coach while you're going to gym, right? If I know that my trainer is going to be there 3 times a week, even if I
Yep.
don't go to gym 5 times a week, I paid him couple $100. I really need to go.
Yes,
you know like
absolutely.
same thing with my I started learning golf recently, as you know.
Oh,
So I had to reschedule my last week session, and he was like, I'll do it for free this time, but next time I'll charge you for the session. And he's not trying to be I see why he's doing that, right? To put you in discipline, right?
yes.
That's also there. And it's funny, you said that about best use of time. So I have multiple mentors, coaches, everyone, different ones in different areas for different purpose. So I was talking to one of them couple weeks back, and she was like, all right, Vic, what are the two things which you wish, top two things which you wish you got done last year?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because there's some things you are putting off things from here. And I
Yeah.
named that, and I was like, see, this is why I don't do it, because one, I don't enjoy it. It's not like I don't know how to do it. I know
Right.
how to do it. I can tell you how to do it, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even want to train one of my employees on how to do it. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what happened? Just because I shared this with her, I knew the problem, I knew the solution. Just because I shared it with her and she said something, I got done with it in a week, and it felt so good and refreshing, right? I blogged few hours, get it done, right?
Yeah.
Eat the frog in the morning kind of thing. If you have
Yeah.
heard about that phrase or book. So I totally agree. So kind of going little bit more into specific now, as you said, you worked with even before the company side, you worked with smaller operations, and even now you're working with leaders who need the help. So what are some of the common leadership failures you have seen, like, let's say specifically in the operation side, or even like in general management, it could be anything. I mean, one of them, like you talked about, like maybe around, like, promoting within the company, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, order picker becoming a supervisor or leader of the pickers. I mean, most common things like which exist. So what are like some of the other ones? I guess I'm really
Yeah.
intrigued.
Yeah, I would say two of the biggest ones and most common that I see. One is a lack of clarity around performance expectations. And then two, a lack of having the difficult conversation when it's needed to happen. So, first, sometimes leaders have a tendency to just kind of assume that someone knows what it means to be highly successful in their roles or what it means to really win in their roles because they feel like, "Oh, okay, I hired them into this position, so they should know exactly what they to do and exactly what I need them to do," without actually specifically telling someone those things. And I see this, unfortunately, most often with CEOs that I work with. They hire people, and then someone is not performing exactly how they would expect, and they start to feel really frustrated. And instead of having the conversation, they let that frustration build and build and build until they start talking to me about it. And a lot of times they're at the point where they feel like, that's it, I just need to let this person go and move on, when the conversations haven't even taken place in order to give that person a chance to meet your expectations. And so that's the goes to the second thing, is being able to sit down with someone and say, "Hey, this specifically is what I would expect you to master in your job. Here's where you're not quite meeting that mark. Here's what I need you to do better. Here's how I'll support you and follow up with you over the next whatever given time frame. And then here's where I will follow up with you to let you know if I'm seeing the progress that needs to be made." Those conversations can be so uncomfortable for leaders. And what I've discovered though is I don't think it's because they don't care about those folks. I actually think it's because they do care. They don't wanna be perceived
They
as
care too much.
mean. Yeah, they don't wanna feel like they're putting too much expectations on someone, or they don't, they're afraid that someone may feel attacked in the conversation, or that they don't like them or anything like that. And so that's why I coach leaders to have the conversation in a very fact-based way. That way, we're taking the emotion out of it as much as possible. Obviously, we're human, so there's going to be some emotion involved, but we're taking the emotion piece as much as we can out of it. And we're saying, here's specifically the behavior that I have seen that needs to be different. Maybe these are the tasks or responsibilities that you are or aren't doing that needs to change, but really sticking to the facts and talking about that. That way, nobody feels like it's a personal attack on them as a human, or them, their personal characteristics or anything like that. Is truly addressing the specifics of the behaviors or the tasks, actions, or responsibilities that that person needs to do differently, and helping someone have the support and the feedback that they need to understand where the bar even is. That's one thing that I tell leaders, is that we should let our team know where the goal is before they even step out on the field. So, how do we make sure it's very, very clear, that everybody knows what winning looks like in their roles? And that's why when I work with clients, one of the first things I typically do is I help them create. I call it a job profile. Everybody calls it something a little different, but something very specific that lists out exactly what is expected of you in your role, both from a tasks, actions, and responsibility standpoint and from a cultural standpoint. So if you're saying these are our company's core values, how would that core value show up every
In
day
the
in that
everyday.
work? Yep. And help bring that home and be more practical to them than just kind of like more vague word on the wall that core values can sometimes be, but really help them understand how they're driving business results and how they're impacting culture. How do they do those things in their job? And sometimes people think that, oh, we have job descriptions. Well, that does that. Well, a lot of times job descriptions are pretty vague because, you're posting them on LinkedIn or Indeed, and you need somebody that knows nothing about your company to understand what that job does. You need something that's a lot more specific, using the specific tools, software, programs, whatever it is that your company uses in order to execute. You want that included in a job profile or some kind of document that defines success in every role in your company, because that's where it starts. Setting those clear expectations, it's the basis of accountability. So I think those are two of the main leadership challenges that I've seen from individuals, frontline leaders, all the way up to CEOs.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have kind of like two thoughts after that. Like, even like, when we, especially when we talk about like SMBs, uh, like job description generally doesn't mean anything,
Yes,
I
one
guess,
hundred
right?
percent
Like, because there's so many times you have to fill in for things you're not supposed to, even
Yes.
if we say that, okay, we are using these five tools today,
Yep.
we might have to use another five. And even now, like, I can like to share a little bit about our like my company and everything. So like, so we use other AI tools, etc. Like, earlier it was like ChatGPT, then it was like Claude, then there's like another one coming up, whatever. Like, we have probably changed like our subscriptions to them like three times in last
Yeah.
1 year, right? And I am at a point where when it comes to like having different tools, like I cannot keep up with that. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like, so like it's funny, like I was having a conversation with my co-founder for Leanify, like just this weekend, and he was like, okay, like, we use HubSpot as our CRM and everything, everything about it, and we can set up this automation, that automation. I said, yeah, I know we can, but like, the thing is, like, what we are trying to do in terms of automation is changing like every 4 weeks because like because when you are in that growing phase
Yeah.
and like when you are in that building phase, things are so dynamic, like
Yeah.
it's so that's another very big challenge, like the adaptability, that flexibility needs to be there, like to build that resilience. I mean, it- for example, like just this last 2 days I've talked to two people who are potential guests on the podcast, and they're like, okay, you should have a scheduling link. But and this is not related to like business, but again, like it's an activity I'm doing, right? Like doing the
Yeah.
podcast. But like it's a different thing. Like this is the fourth episode. I'm still, first of all, this was not even going to be an ongoing thing. I don't know if you know this or not, but it was only a 5 episode thing which I thought I will do. But I started enjoying it. I started having the conversations. People were liking it. I was like, okay, I'll do this ongoing. And that
Mhm.
is why there was a gap of almost, I think the last one I did with Mike was almost like 5 or 6 weeks back. And but I was doing one every week, but I paused because I had to tweak it. I was like, oh, now I'm doing it every day, or like not every day, like every week or whatever. Like it's a different process. I mean, like instead of just doing five, and how I want to do it, how I want my first 10 guests to be, all that, right? Like so it's not that straight up. Yeah, I know that, like I can do a calendly link, I use it for my work, but there is a reason I don't have it, so those are also very interesting challenges, because
Yeah.
what I'm trying to like have these conversations here, like is everything changes, right? Like when you are a solopreneur versus you hire your first employee, 5, 10, 20, you can do it based on number of employees or you can do it based on revenue, but whatever the growth path is, things work very differently.
Yes.
uh, and more than anything, like I feel like having that agility, like in terms of being able to adapt, because we live in a very very fast changing world, like
Mhm.
it's like changing like every second at this point.
Yes.
Like we might get out of this call and our phones are on silent, who knows what would have happened in that, like 1 hour, so it's like very interesting. And like COVID was probably like one of the times which taught a lot to us about being flexible, agile, like
Yeah.
having systems which can quickly turn and all that. So I guess like that was, I went like little too much with it, but you get my point. Like, but
Yeah.
what I was trying to ask you is that, like, how do you think that building in that agility, like that flexibility along with process, like, how, like, what's a kind of like a good approach or thought process behind it, like, because I think that's another thing like leaders need to be like trained on in a way, and today it has become like an integral part of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that what's so important is getting the right people with that mindset. So, as you're building your team, really making sure that if your business is one that is changing on a very regular basis due to technology, due to new clients, whatever the case may be, in your interview process, in your core values, make sure that it's really, really clear that we need people who not only are comfortable with change and flexibility, people who actually enjoy that and
Yeah.
thrive in environments like that. A lot of the tools that I use when working with clients come from the Entrepreneurial Operating System or EOS. And one of
Hmm.
the things they talk about is the importance of your core values and how your core values should attract the people who are
Who
in
are fit.
alignment with those core values. And even maybe more powerfully, repel the ones who aren't, right? So if you're someone who wants to come and sit at your desk and do the same thing every single day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, that's fine. But then go find a company where you can do that. But and make sure that your company, if that's not the kind of person that you need, make sure that your company makes it very clear that we are constantly looking to do things new, better, differently. So just because we're doing something one way one week doesn't mean we'll still be doing it the same way the next week. And really making sure that people understand that this is our normal business. It's
Mhm.
the norm, not the exception. And really try to attract the kind of people that would say, that sounds cool. I don't want to be bored doing the same thing every single day. So that's why I always start with the mission and core values, because I think that so many of our business decisions should be run through the lens of those things. And sometimes I think people might think oh, it's just kind of fluff. It doesn't really
Yeah.
do much, but they should be such powerful tools in your organization to define what you do and why it matters and attract the right people and repel the wrong ones.
You're like, so as you like, this reminds me of something very interesting. So as you know, like, in my early career, like from operations consulting, everything, like somehow there was an overlap in marketing and sales as well.
Mm,
For a very long time, like, what people think, like, about mission, vision, and values as a marketing tool.
yeah.
Like they think, oh, this is like something which like our clients, oh, like this needs to be this. Like they get like so technical about it. And also like your mission is something which ends whatever, right? Like, again, I'm not going to get into technicalities, but you're so right. Like, it is, even if you don't write it anywhere, you don't have to put it on your website, don't like talk about it on like LinkedIn, whatever, it doesn't matter. It is something which drives your core values, your company's core values. You should know it, write it somewhere, put it on your, in front of your laptop or desk, whatever, I don't know, like, but those are the things, like, as you said, decision making, that is so so true. So I was guest on someone's podcast like 2 days back, and like his name is Mark, by the way, Tao of Pizza. So Mark Edelson, he asked me that, okay, like, how were your mentors, etc. He said, like, I have learned something from someone, like, my dad once told me when I was like young, probably like 14, 15. So that was like, okay, like, one thing you need to do is that whatever you have done throughout the day, whatever decisions you have made throughout the day, just make sure they're ethically right as well,
Yep.
right? So that has become a very core value of not just me, of the entire company, that, okay, like, if one of our team members mom is, let's say, like fighting through cancer or something and they need time off, we say, okay, go take 1 month time off, right?
Hmm.
Because not everything is about like KPI, etc., etc., right?
Hmm.
And like you said, like, we are very direct when we post our job description, but obviously we post about the bad things there, not the good ones, right? So like sometimes people get scared too, but that is fine. It
Yes.
takes us longer to hire, and I'm totally okay with it. I want to fill a position this month. We can get it in 3 months. We can survive. But the whole aspect of hiring wrong, training them, then it's not good for them. It's not good for us, right? So
Mhm.
it's always like another one which I believe in is like under promise over deliver, so which we apply in hiring too. We say that you will not be able to sleep ever but that's not the reality of it, right? So in India right now there is like heat wave going on, so so it's pretty hot there and everything. So but no office closes. We made our office like work from home for next 3 months, everyone like just work from home. We said no one has to come, only you have to come 2 times a month. And if needed, like we'll let you know that everyone comes. Like, but if you really want to, because for some reason you cannot work from home, we have an office. You can come there. So my sister saw it and posted it on different places. We didn't post it on LinkedIn. Or I think we did, but she's like, "Is this your company?" I'm like, "Yeah, you should." I told you we should work together. Like, come over. Because it adds on there too, right? Like, so if you are working, you have to have a balance. Like we are not trying to hire slaves here, but like the thing is, like the whole thing is like, okay, you are passionate about it, you like change. When you're going through change, you have to work a lot. But when things are stable, you sometimes don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
I have had sometimes my team members come to me that we have been feeling like little bit like we need more work, because we've been working maybe only 20, 30 hours a week. And even if we don't do 70, that's fine, but at least 40, 50 should be like, at least we do, because they enjoy. That's
Yes.
another aspect. Now sometimes we put people in positions which they're not good fit for, right? And I'm sure, like, have you seen something like that? And I have a very funny analogy which I'll say after you answer this, which I use sometimes. But yeah, like, what are your thoughts on that, putting like people in wrong places? Because sometimes people also don't know whether or not it is good for them or not, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so what are your thoughts or some experiences around that?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the reasons that I do like using some of those tools from EOS. So, EOS calls it the right person, right seat, RPRS. And so, how we determine that we have the right person in the right seat? Well, one, we want to determine that we have the right person, meaning, does this person belong in our organization at all? And there's a tool that EOS uses called the People Analyzer, where we basically just put down all of our team members and then all of our core values, and we evaluate, does this person consistently model our core values? Yes or no? And you have a conversation around that. So that's how you determine if you even have the right person for your company. Then once you've determined, say that you do, then you want to determine, are they in the right seat? And there's another tool
Mm,
that EOS uses called GWC, which stands for get it, want it, and capacity. So one, we want to know, do they get it? Do they understand what is required of them to perform at a very high level in this role?
mm-mm.
Next, do they want it? Do they even want this job? Is this
Yeah.
something that they're enjoying and passionate about and best suits their strengths? And lastly is capacity. And that is the one that can be more challenging, because this is where you might have to make the tough call that we have a great team member, they model the values, but they don't have the capacity to succeed at a high level in this role. It's just not a fit for their skills. The best example I use for this is for myself. If someone were to put me in an accountant seat, I
Me
probably
too, me
would,
too.
right? Like, I would get what I needed to do. I wouldn't really want that position because I know that that's not where my strengths are, and from a capacity standpoint, I my brain doesn't think so well when it comes to those kind of things, and so it wouldn't be what right for me or the company for me to be in a bookkeeper or accountant kind of position, and so but it's not only helpful for the person to have the self-awareness of what their strengths are, to make sure their manager knows what they want to do, and not get complacent in their role and just stay in it because they've done it for a long period of time, but really take ownership of their own career. And then from a leadership perspective, having the courage to make those decisions that might be difficult at times, but finding people the right seat within the organization that is the best use of their skill set, of their passions and their energy, so that they are contributing to the best of their ability to the organization and enjoying themselves at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I mean, it's funny, like earlier I was telling you something I was putting off, which I ended up doing that was related to accounting and bookkeeping.
Yeah. You and me both,
So,
my friend.
yeah. uh, but it's funny, but yeah, so like the analogy I like to use. So by the way, I didn't know you went through US because I did it like partly, but so I'm very familiar with the US as well. And I generally try to convert like some frameworks and like some fun analogy, like because sometimes our job like operations and like everything can be too serious and boring, and that I try to like joke around as much as I can. So the analogy I put is that when I'm trying to say the right fit is that what, like if you ask a monkey to swim and a fish to fly, it's not going to work out.
Right. Yes. That's a
So
great
it's like
analogy.
the same, but like finding that is also important, right? Like because I mean, it's not like that people cannot do it. Like I do believe you can train someone to do whatever, but the thing is, like, will that they be good at it? So like enjoy it. So that's also part of like example our core values. When we are hiring someone, we say that okay, like we are hiring for you for exposition, but you know
Mhm.
what? You're free. You want to learn why? Come it like go learn why. In our
Mhm.
company or otherwise, like because like one of my companies is so diverse, people can do pretty much whatever they want to do, right? Like
Yeah.
one of my best employees joined me as a graphic designing intern, and today he's like a project manager. He manages a team and everything, and like he sometimes reviews like legal contracts for me. I mean, so like so that's also the thing, like when you let people be free a little bit too,
Yeah.
but that does require a lot of patience, I would say. Sometimes you lose time and money doing that too, because if you are putting so much, especially as a smaller company, right? Because we have only enough people to like barely be able to do their job, and like if you're letting them loose to like I guess like learn and all that, like it does create a little bit void in what needed to be done. But if you are able to balance it, like I feel that we can create a very harmonious team, like which is working with like in harmony,
Yeah.
processes, cultivation, growth. But it's definitely not as easy as it sounds. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because one of the most, I would say, pretty transformational books that I read, rather earlier on in my career was Strengths Finder 2.0.
sorry, what is
And
it called?
Strengths Finder.
Strength fighter. Okay,
StrengthsFinder
I'm not.
2.0. Yeah.
Okay.
And what was really kind of transformational to me about that is, I'm naturally pretty perfectionistic. And so I have a tendency to think about all the things that I don't do very well and try to be better at those, which I think is a good thing. But at the same time, there was a sentence in the book that really struck me. It said something to the effect of, you can't be anything that you want, but you can be the best at what
Best.
you already are. And I just thought that that was so powerful because the point of it was saying that, if, for example, the accounting, if I
Yeah.
were to spend hours and hours and hours trying to learn how to be an accountant, I would probably get incrementally better because I would be learning. But for example, I really enjoy public speaking, and I think I do have some innate talents and abilities in that area. So if I were to spend the exact same amount of hours on developing that ability, I would get exponentially better because I already have those raw materials of gifts in that area. And so we want to make sure that our weaknesses are in no way becoming obstacles for our success. So we want to have, some level of knowledge and capability. Like I really do my best to make sure I understand P&Ls and budgets so that when I'm working with my clients, I can speak knowledgeably about those, but I wouldn't want to ever do their books. But also then spend so much time learning and developing in the areas where you already know you have some natural gifts, talents, and abilities in order to really be the best in those things.
I mean, that's for sure. I mean, that statement, and I think I will end up reading that book. And I need to get you my book, so in the next podcast with you, you
Yes.
can say this is the best book I've read.
Yes, absolutely.
So I mean, I guess the all it kind of comes down to having that right guidance when you need it to, right?
Yeah.
Someone to tell you all right, and another thing is which might be little bit off topic here, but kind of related, probably parallel, is we always hear the saying, and we have always been hearing, it's lonely at the top, etc., etc. And along with, I just feel that getting good mentorship, etc., because you can find mentors, etc., anywhere, right? You can be part of communities, like you said, right? Let's say I'm part of this community now, which is a community of creators, right? So
Mhm.
I just started, I was never going to be a creator. It was something I'm doing, 5 series episode, because my team has been after my life for 10 years. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. But I ended up enjoying it. That's probably why they were telling me, because they know me better than I know myself. So I became part of it, but it is so good, right? I'm okay, trying to do this. I was not planning to do this. It's help, right? Someone who has done something already, learning from them is the best thing you can do. It puts you years ahead, right? And sometimes as you come in new, you can tell few people few things too, right? I actually told someone who has been doing podcasts for 3 years about couple tools which came out new, like this one we are using, Riverside, so because a lot of people do it on Zoom, it's set up, it's working, it is nothing too pressing. But wait, this is a little better, this is how you do it, it helps each other, having being in that community
Mhm.
and with similar minded people is also very very important, for sure, I believe. But yeah, kind of a lot of our audience is specific to 3PL, as you know, so I just want to kind of switch gears, be a little bit more, use some example of 3PL here. So some of the 3PL warehouses, and you're part of IW as well, you have so many conversations around. What are some of the again, I don't like to put it in word, but top three, but you don't have to list top three, you can do two, one, or 10. But what are some of the top pain points around leadership contributing with operations, and what are some of the challenges they face?
Yeah. I think a big one that I've seen in the 3PL space, and quite frankly, I see it in a lot of small businesses, is the overwhelm, right? They're in this kind of startup phase, or maybe they're not even startup phase. It's a smaller business, so you have a few people wearing a lot of hats. And so, really, just kind of the stress that can come from that. And that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, is really making sure that everyone is clear on what their roles are and what they are owning, and if they're the right person to own those things. And so, I think it's important for especially smaller to medium sized 3PLs to get really clear on their org chart and not only build what that should look like today around who owns what functionally, but also build out where would we want our company to look like in the next year. I know this phrase can be so cliche, but we often do get so tied up working in the business that we don't raise ourselves high enough to work on the business.
Yeah, yeah.
And so not allowing yourself to get so tied up in the day to day that you forget we actually want to grow this business and we want to expand our clientele. So what are we doing to intentionally do that? And I think another thing that is really helpful for businesses to do is to set those goals. What do you want your revenue goals to be? What do you want? How many clients do you want to have? Things like that. And another thing that I think can be a challenge is, I think it's easy for us to start to get into kind of what I would call a scarcity mindset where we're starting to feel like, oh no, I need business, I need clients, and I'll take anything I can get. But then you may work with clients that aren't a right fit for you or your business. You might hire people just to get a butt in a seat when they're not the right person for your company. So, really trying to think of your business more from an abundance mindset of we will experience this growth. We just need to have a plan for it. We need to execute the plan. We need to be clear on what our priorities are and really working through that in a more kind of structured and methodical way. So you're not just, your day isn't governed by what is the fire that I have to put out today, but you're really being significantly more proactive in how you structure your day and your efforts in a way that will allow you to realize the business growth that you want. So that's what I think are some of the biggest challenges that I've seen from more the people aspect side of things is how to grow the team, when to grow the team, how to effectively clarify who owns what on the team. And then that way you know what your revenue is coming in. And that's really the baseline, right? Cash is king. We got to have cash in order to get the right people on the teams, we hire the right folks, but also then find the right technology or the right equipment or whatever the case may be. So, really just being planful about how you want to grow and when you want to grow.
I like started connecting the dots, right? Like, like my thought is like little bit off topic from the the question I asked too, but like it kind of relates to it in a funny way. So we were talking about mission, vision, and values, and in my mind, while you were talking about this, like even like customer, like bring on business, etc. So one thing I strongly believe in too is not only just my team members, etc. Anyone I work with, like be my customers, be my vendors, whoever they need to align with my personal vision, mission, vision, values, right? Like, and my company's mission, vision, values are very similar to mine as well. So, like, we say no very often, right? Like, there might be a customer who might want, like, paying us good, whatever, but like, if it doesn't align with the long term aspect, we generally say that we know we might not be a good fit,
Right.
because I talked about this to like other business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, and they're like, "Oh, you might be leaving like a bit on table." And I tell them, you know what? It lets me and rest of my team sleep good at night.
Yes.
That's also one of my values, which my dad taught me. So because I can get a client who will give me a headache, it is fine, but like it would not it would take away that enjoyment little bit, even if it's like for an hour a week. I don't need to let that go. I'm happy with the money I'm making, like as long
Mhm.
as like it's okay that it's not going to like that one client is not paying for my mortgage or something, right? Like we are okay, like we can grow a little slow, that's fine too, but having every decision aligned with those values like we were talking about kind of comes in here too, because sometimes when I am talking thinking like sitting through things where people talk about having ICP, etc.,
Yeah.
honestly like everyone is just talking about, okay, this is the size of the customer, this is like the revenue, this is the number of orders I want, this is the size I want, cold storage I want, freezer storage. And generally whenever I'm having those conversation in my mind, always it's going, yeah, like that's honestly according to me 101. Like you can get that done with it like probably like maximum in a month if you sit down, understand what your strengths are, etc. But I think aligning with your like having your mission, vision, values in ICP as well, right? Like making sure that you're not like making sure like, because again like as I was telling you, like sometimes like MVP, like mission, vision, values have been mistaken for marketing. So
Yeah.
people try to sometimes put it forward in terms of what like their customers would like to hear, right? Like we fulfill everything in 10 minutes, or like you
Right.
call us, like we'll answer your call every time, right?
Yeah.
Like no, like I don't want you to call me, like my company is that you never have to call me. That's what my value is, like my whole process is that, okay, like yeah, like in the beginning like you might have to call me or like anyone in our company, but there are sometimes clients like I have not talked to in a year, and like I'm like close to all of them. So today I called someone and I have not talked to him like in 4 months, one of my really big clients and all that. And whenever we talk, we never talk about work actually, because everything is set. It's running in its own synergy and everything. I never get crazy calls from my clients saying, oh, like this is not happening. Maybe in the beginning of the relationship, yeah, when the change management is going, implementation is going, but after those first 3 4 months, it is like that. So my values, I don't want, first of all, I'm not going to answer your call because my
Mhm.
phone is on silent always. Second thing is, the reason it is because I don't want it to. Why do you want to waste time calling me? Why do I
Yeah.
want to waste time calling, answering you? But so that cannot be, because, but the client really wants to listen that, oh, like, Vic is saying, call me anytime, I'll answer your call. But I don't say that because it doesn't make any sense to me.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to say the, truth hits hard, right? Like, but that's what it's going to be, because even if someone is telling you that I'll always answer your call, it's humanly impossible, like. But yeah, I think like we froze for a second, but yeah, like, I think it definitely what, like, it all like kind of winds down and everything together, like, as a full circle, if you may.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And just I think you really hit the nail on the head in that defining for yourself and for your team, what are your non-negotiables, both for yourselves internally as well as your clients externally.
100%. And so, like, I know we are almost nearing the time, so but I had like a lot of more questions. We probably, this calls for a follow-up episode on our discussion. But I probably like say, like, if you have to like leave someone thinking that, someone who went through this entire 1 hour of us chatting. So, like, if you want to tell them that, maybe one or two things they can do, like, something very simple. They don't need anyone for this. They can do this themselves over next, like, couple days, what it would be to
Yeah.
be better leader, I guess is, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had to say that.
I think a couple of very practical things that people can do is one, make sure that you look when you look at the meetings that your team has, make sure every single meeting has a purpose and an agenda and a leader. I think sometimes we can get a little loosey goosey with our meetings, that it's a little too much just reporting the news. And then no one really got anything out of it. No decisions were made, things like that. But I think most people don't like meetings because they don't have those things. And I think that's where clarity begins. That's where you set the stage for what our goals are, how we're going to accomplish them by making sure all your meetings have very clear purposes. And then I think a lot of operational teams have this, but if a team doesn't, I highly encourage a daily stand up meeting at the start of the day. There's so many benefits to that. I think one very practical benefit is it makes people know they need to be on time, because if your shift starts at 7 a.m. and everybody's huddled in your huddle area at 7 a.m., if you're walking in at 7:02, it's very obvious. So
Yes,
I think
and
that is just
awkward.
a yeah, it's a very practical thing. But two, it's so important to let your team know, here's how I, as your leader, am going to define what a good day is today. I'm going to define that right now in this meeting. It can be a 5-minute huddle. It shouldn't be a long thing, but let's set up the day in a way that the team knows, okay, if we accomplish these, 2, 3, 5 things, we know we had a great day today. So everybody is on the same page in regards to what we need to accomplish. I think those are two very practical things that leaders can do even as soon as tomorrow if they're not doing that already.
That's wonderful, and I totally agree. Like setting the tone right on the stay of the start of the day, and like, I didn't think about it. Yeah, like that will make people come on time too. I think I need to start doing that. Like, there's a meeting like 4 a.m. every day. But yeah, I think I would like to like add one thing too, because like it kind of adds on to what you said about like some meetings not having agenda, and like, doing it without that. And also it kind of ties to one of the other things which you mentioned is, sometimes we are so engrossed into our day-to-day stuff, we are not able to really see what we can do. And also it ties to one of the things I said, that sometimes we as founders, we know what to do, but we are not able to do it because we are in that box. So what I have seen working a lot in 3PL warehouses and manufacturing as well, especially, can be possible if you have a big office too, if we generalize it for businesses. But for warehouses, just walk, keeping like 30 minutes in your day as a leader, as a where you just walk, go on the floor
Absolutely.
with no agenda, not like saying that, oh, this pallet should not have been here, this tape is broken, or this label is not working good. Just walk, take that time, think of it as a nature walk. I mean, in a way, because what you're walking is like something you have built over years or whatever. First, appreciate it so you feel good about all these sleepless nights. Second, utilize that time to just chat with people. You can just hang out, with your order picker, or your manager or anyone. Just hey, what's up, how's it going, right? 30 minutes is, I don't think, a lot. You can do it right after lunch so you get some steps in. It could be anything. You can do it early in the morning, later in the day. It's not going to stop your operation. It's not doing anything. What it's doing is three things. One, giving you free time to observe.
Mhm.
Second, getting you some steps in. Third is also giving your team members a free space to say
Yes.
things which they might not say in a structured meeting, and give them more confidence that they will be able to say it to you when they need to.
Yeah.
So being more accessible, I think it solves a lot of things. Just 30 minutes can change a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I would say. But yeah, I would like to conclude with this saying. So I cannot remember the exact name of the program which we're doing with IWLA, but I'll just give a high level brief and you can announce the name of the program which is going live. But so Tanya and Prepared Leader is partnering up with IWLA, so International Warehousing Logistics Association. So by the time this whole episode goes out, that's where it would be going live. But I generally post a clip from this whole session, so I'll make sure to include it in the end. But that is essentially anyone who is looking to get leadership side of things or get their feet wet. I think that's pretty good for them. You don't, and I think I'm since we already talked about it, I'm telling a lot about it, but I'll let Tanya speak. But what I just feel is that it's not like a very crazy commitment for months, years, or anything like that. It's something simple you can get in, not which will burn a hole in your wallet or you have to mortgage your house for, and a very small time and money commitment, and will give you a lot of insights. If you found any value from this discussion, I think you'll find much value from that as well. So Tanya, I'll let you speak for that, unless I will just start speaking more about it.
No, I appreciate you mentioning it. Yes, it's called the Frontline Leadership Cohort. So, what we'll be doing is meeting for 6 months, and we'll have one 90-minute call each month. Each call will have a specific training module, a different leadership tool to put in your tool belt. But how we'll structure these is that in the first 30 minutes will actually be discussion of how the group was able to apply what they learned from the last call. So we really want to make sure that these tools do make a difference in each of the participants' leadership. And the only way to do that is to really talk about how did you apply this concept to your leadership in the past month. So after that first 30 minutes, then the last 60 minutes will be the new content. And we'll just follow that process and format for 6 months. And it's, yeah, like you said, very economical. This is the first time we're doing this cohort. So the price is either $7.95 or $9.95, depending on whether someone is an IWLA member. But feel free to reach out to me if you want any more information. It's just Tanya, Tania, at thepreparedleader.com. And I'm very happy to share more information for anyone that's interested.
And I would like to clarify one thing. The price which Tanya mentioned is for the whole 6 months, not
It is.
monthly. So,
Yes, yes.
and I think you should do that every, because even when you told me this first time, I was like, okay, that's monthly, because that's Like when you say, okay, it is like 6 months, so, because most people will think it is monthly unless you don't say it to them. That
Yeah.
also means you can charge more next time.
Well, we wanna
Yeah,
make sure we prove the
it's
concept with
accessible.
everyone and hope that everyone finds the value that I believe you can get out of a program like this.
Yeah, no, and like that's why, like I was trying to say tell everyone that it is more accessible. It is something, it helps you get your feet wet without, like a crazy commitment, and
Mhm.
I think that is very grateful of you. Of I'm grateful that you're doing it, because a lot of people can like uh, get that, like what they don't, because that's the problem in the SMB space. Sometimes they don't know who to access.
Yes.
Sometimes they get access to wrong people. Sometimes they get access to right people, but they cannot afford. But like something that they where they can start. So definitely, and I have already started. I've sent it to 5 people already. I don't know if they signed up or not, but I did send the link to 5 people I know who can benefit from it. So I wish
Great.
you the best and looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya, for being here with us. We'll definitely be doing another session with you here in like few weeks or month, but I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time and your patience while I was figuring out technology to make my camera mic work as a host. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll looking
Absolutely.
forward to seeing you again.
Thanks so much. Me as well.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone who watched us. Thank you.